So it is Wednesday, July 9th of 2025. And as far as I can see things, we have a bit of a crisis on our hands. Because this morning, a lot of people on the internet, for some reason, really believed that Nintendo was going to announce a Nintendo Direct today to happen this week, more than likely tomorrow on July 10th. And of course, that did not happen for reasons that I think a lot of us understand, because they have a really big game coming out next week that is probably much more their focus than a wider Nintendo Direct. But because that didn't happen, a lot of people are very upset. They're in their feelings. They're sad. They're frustrated. They don't know what's going on. They just need that Nintendo Direct fix so badly. And I find it to be a crisis because, as is the purpose of this video, we need to remind everyone that the Nintendo Switch 2, you guys, is brand spanking new. The Switch 2 has been out for 1 month and 4 days. So we're going to round generously, and we're going to say it's been out for 1 month, man. It's just been over 4 weeks since a brand new console, a next generation Nintendo device, has released. And I know it might be shocking to a lot of people who might be newer to gaming or have taken a break from gaming over the years or maybe too young to have been gaming for a very long time. But the truth of the matter is that it takes a while for any new console or any new generation to get going. It's not like day 1, here's your new console, and day 5, here's 10 other new next generation exclusive amazing first party games. It takes time, man. The Switch 2 is brand new. We have 5 to 10 more years of the Switch 2. Nintendo ain't releasing a bunch of games right away, and they sure as heck don't need a Nintendo Direct in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the console's life. Now, I do want to make one thing abundantly clear. As a game fan and as a Nintendo super fan, of course, I want a Nintendo Direct. I'm always excited for any new Nintendo Direct or any new video game presentation that's going to happen. At least if it's something I'm excited for, like, for example, PlayStation is having a Ghost of Yotei show. I think they're calling it a State of Play. That's occurring tomorrow on July 10th, and I think that game looks amazing. It's one of my most anticipated games of the year, and so I'm excited for that show, and that's just a Sony PlayStation show about one specific game. Just like the Donkey Kong Direct we had 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Sometimes you do a game-specific show, those get me excited. Sometimes you do a wider show, like a traditional Nintendo Direct, and of course, I'm also excited. So, if a Direct was announced today, yeah, I'd be jumping for joy. If it's announced next week even for some reason, sure, I'll be jumping for joy because I'm waiting for a Metroid Prime 4 date. And it is very exciting to know that eventually we'll get news about future Switch 2 stuff, because we don't know a lot about the Switch 2 past 2025. We know of a lot of games still releasing this year, starting with Donkey Kong next week, but we don't know much about 2026 other than the Dusk Bloods. That's really technically it. And so the point of this is to say, it's okay to be excited at the prospect of a Nintendo Direct, but we're in the Switch 2 era now, you guys. The Switch 2 is out. The Switch 1 era of everyone just freaking out over drip feeds of leaks and rumors and promises of Nintendo Directs, we have to move past that era, okay? A lot of that era was even filled with stories about Switch Pro and Switch 2 and next generation Nintendo stuff. And I certainly talked about a lot of that over the years. I'm not trying to pretend like I didn't do that through my YouTube channel. But with the Switch 1 behind us, and now 4 simple weeks into the Switch 2, I think we all need to just kind of settle down and relax. Let's put the era of leaks and rumors behind us. Let's acknowledge the fact that Nintendo's next generation console is brand new. And let's have some patience and wait for things to slowly come at us when Nintendo is ready to share them. As I've already mentioned, right now Nintendo's focus is clearly on Donkey Kong Bonanza. That is their next big game. It is their first brand new Switch 2 next generation video game in the Switch 2 era, right? Yes, it launched with Mario Kart World, but that was a day 1 game. So the first new game after the launch day 1 title is Donkey Kong. It is a week away. It is so exciting. I've been excited about it since April. I'm even more excited for it after the Nintendo Direct, of course, as most of us were. So right now, Nintendo's not going to give us a Nintendo Direct about, 100 other things. They want to make sure all of their marketing is focused on Donkey Kong, get that game out, make sure it's a success, make sure it gets sold to the people, us being the people, because hot damn, I can't wait for that game. It comes out the day after my birthday. What a great birthday present for me. And so that is their first game. I mean, we already have, God, I've talked about this so many times over the past 2 months. It is incredible that we get the Switch 2, a next generation Nintendo console, and a new Mario Kart game on the same day, June 5th, and only 5 or 6 weeks later, we have Donkey Kong. We have the next big game. Nintendo is actually treating us pretty well if you look at it from that lens. 6 weeks between a new generation and the next big game is fantastic. And considering we still have Metroid, Pokemon, Hyrule Warriors, and Kirby to look forward to throughout the rest of the year, that means we have plenty of other games to keep us fed between now and December 31st, 2025. There's probably going to be a game a month as far as we know. So everything's looking good in terms of release cadence for the Switch 2. Also, it's worth noting that in a lot of ways, what Nintendo is doing is kind of normal. I mean, if you look at prior generations and prior consoles, this is kind of usually what tends to happen. In fact, a lot of you might not know this if you are pretty young, but going back to the early 2000s and into the 90s, it would be common for consoles to not launch with any sort of killer app title. So the fact that the Switch launched with Breath of the Wild and the Switch 2 launched with Mario Kart World is pretty huge, man, because that doesn't always happen, or at least it didn't back in the day. But if you look at prior console generations and the release cadence for big games, what we're seeing with the June release of the Switch 2 to the July release of Donkey Kong is actually kind of on par. It's par for the course, so to speak. The Switch 1 released in March with Breath of the Wild, but it took until the following month, April, to get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the next big game for the Switch, which, by the way, was a port of a game that we'd all played anyway on the Wii U. But if we include Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you go from March to April for Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8, and then we waited only another 2 months to June until ARMS came out. If you go back to the Nintendo GameCube, it launched in November with games like Luigi's Mansion and Star Wars Rogue Squadron, so 2 pretty kick-ass launch titles. And then it took another month until December, and I'm talking North American dates, by the way. So in North America, it took until the next month, December, to get Smash Bros. Melee, the next big first-party exclusive title. So you get November for launch, December for the next big game. That's only 1 month difference. Just like with the Switch 2, you have June for Switch 2, and you have July for Donkey Kong. We can even look at something like the Xbox 360, which, God, the killer app launch title for the 360, I guess technically would have been Perfect Dark Zero, which, as we know, really wasn't the game that we all wanted it to be. It was not very good. It was not a good follow-up to the original Perfect Dark, which was sad. But it was high profile. People were excited about it. It represented, a brand new relationship between Microsoft and Rare at the time. And so that was the launch title, even though it wasn't really all that good. And it took, I actually don't know when Oblivion came out, but Oblivion would have been the first Xbox 360 big game. And then it was not until the following year, November 2006, that we got Gears of War. And so the point of all of this rambling about prior generations is that it's not abnormal for companies to either make you wait a while for your next big games, like with Gears of War taking a year, or if it comes very soon after, like with the Switch 1 or with the GameCube, where it only takes a month to get the next big game. Both are common. And the Switch 2, we're kind of seeing the better of the two options because we're already getting Donkey Kong and it's only a month after the Switch 2 releases. And so to kind of wrap this up and sort of, put a bow on this, so to speak, this is really just a reason for me to, I guess, sort of rant. I guess I kind of did rant in this video, but rant or discuss the fact that the Switch 2 is new, you guys. They're not going to dump 100 games on us right away. Sure, maybe a July Nintendo Direct makes sense before the month is over. Absolutely. Maybe they do it in the last week of the month because that'll be 2 weeks after Donkey Kong comes out. I think that that's very likely. Maybe the end of July or in August. I have a hard time thinking they're going to wait all the way until September for the next big September Direct, but maybe they do that as well. Who knows? I mean, we sure got to know what's happening with Metroid Prime 4, man. When is that release date? I'm telling you, do not remove November from your calendars. I know people want to push back and say Metroid Prime 4 doesn't deserve to be a November title. And maybe it won't be, but also maybe it will be. At this point, how much time between the announcement of the date and the release of the game are we going to have? I feel like if they announce the date in August, then releasing it in November certainly makes a lot of sense. And so I'm just saying I think it could happen. It's not a hard prediction. I'm just saying I believe it could be Nintendo's holiday title. So time will tell when it comes to that. Anyway, kind of going off the rails, and I feel a little bit all over the place in this video, but the point remains true. The Switch 2 is brand new. Please do not forget that, guys. We don't need 10 games every single month to keep us satisfied. No one should have enough free time to play that many games across all the platforms in this hobby, okay? So we had Mario Kart. We're getting Donkey Kong in a week. And then sometime soon after that, we're going to be playing Hyrule Warriors and Metroid and Pokemon and maybe Kirby 6 to 25. I don't know what to expect with that. And I don't really follow the Kirby Air Riders thing. It's just, I didn't really like the original GameCube game, so I don't have a lot to say about the sequel until we get a trailer. So I am open-minded and excited to learn what Kirby Air Riders 2 is actually going to be like. I am certainly curious, but I don't have any strong opinions on it right now until I see that trailer. But yeah, if that game sticks to 2025, then there you go. We have so many games to still play. No one is like dying from a dearth of content on the Switch 2. It's 4 weeks old. Give it some time, you guys. Everything will be fine. Do a little woo-saw, right? Bad Boys 2, let's do a little woo-saw and just relax and just wait, man. It's coming soon.